Hello world, last time Melody in Argentina kicked off our show, but this time we're on my own side of the ocean. Welcome to Cameroon, Central Africa. And this is Team Harmony's hit. What are you going to do?
Cameroon? When's the last time you talked to somebody from Cameroon? Heck, most of my friends don't even know where it is. But that's our job. So we're gonna show you where it is with our official Team Harmony Where is Cameroon map.
And that's where Eric is, right in the middle of Africa, just above the equator, where it's probably a lot hotter than where we are today, here in wicked cold Massachusetts at the Team Harmony studios. And by the way, I'm Kahari.
And I'm Angel. It is so good to be back after being away for a month. Now, if you missed our last show, you missed our episode on LGBTQ rights, teaching kids in rural China, and indigenous street art in Denver, Colorado.
And I'm still Ellie. If you've missed any of our previous episodes, you can still check them out at our website at teamharmonyfoundation.org.
This month, most of our stories will focus on civil rights and equality. We'll tackle issues like microaggressions, stereotyping, and discrimination.
But we're going to start things off today in Alexandria, Egypt, where Yasmin explains what microaggressions are and how they affect our societies.
Today, I will be having the delight to interview one of the most professional psychoanalysts in Egypt, Dr. Dina Hassan. Hi, Dina. From your professional point of view, what is microaggression?
I think microaggression depends on the person receiving it. So microaggression is really any kind of aggression that is very subtle. It's not enough for other people to notice it, but enough for you to notice it. So it's more like a comment or a backhanded compliment or something that makes the person in front of me feel uncomfortable, not enough for other people to notice that it's a bad thing.
And does it impact us as individuals only, or does it have an impact on the society as well?
I think it absolutely impacts both, because it impacts me as a person because I'll get offended or upset, but I won't be able to say anything because society tells me that this is not so bad. So I think the major problem with microaggression is that when someone does speak up and says, hey, this bothered me, really isn't okay, you'll find so many people coming in and saying, by the way, this was just a joke, like chill, like don't be so dramatic. And I think that's essentially the problem with microaggression. It's that it's always overlooked and then people keep doing it.
And how should we address it as a society to solve it?
It starts in the teens, because that's really the age where people are told that they're being very dramatic and they should get over things, and that the adults know that it's not so bad. So I think the thing that we can start with is to acknowledge how people feel, because if I can acknowledge how someone else feels, I'll help them be able to acknowledge how they feel, which I know is counterintuitive because you should know how you feel, but it's actually quite helpful to do this in teens, because if you tell them that it's okay to express how you feel, they then grow up knowing that it's okay, and then they can just say, hey, you know what, this bothered me, you shouldn't be saying that to me.
And to finalize this, what is your advice to teenagers who suffer from microaggression?
If you feel it, then it's there. Just because someone else tells you it's not there doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Because if you feel offended, that means that your body reacted to it, and so did your brain produced all the chemicals for you to be upset. You did the work, so own those feelings.
Thank you so much, Dina, for this helpful talk, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Yasmin.
Oh, you're so skinny, you're so small, you're so thin, you look like a model. Do you eat your food or someone else eats your food? All of these backhanded comments, all of these compliments really hurted me. They made me insecure about my looks, my body. I didn't want to buy any clothes. I didn't want to have photos of myself. I used to think that I'm not good enough. I don't look beautiful enough for the community or the standards that community put. I always suffered from these microaggressions, and microaggression hits you on another level that makes you feel that you're very vulnerable, you're not worthy of the standards of the community, you're not beautiful. So I thought that after all of these years, after I have overcame my incidents with microaggression, that I should own up, I should know who I am, and I should always think that I'm better, I'm the best, and no one should set me down because of a compliment he thinks that will make me happy. That's my story. I'm Yasmin Ahmed, Team Harmony's reporter from Egypt.
Nice job, Yasmin. Now let's meet a woman who actually educates her haters through comedy.
So what I've done is I've created a highly scientific taxonomy of haters. I basically took all of the haters, I put them in a petri dish like a scientist, and this is what I found. First off, we have the trolls. These are your garden variety digital haters. They're the people who have quit their jobs so that they can post on YouTube videos all day long. There's also the drive-by haters. Now, these people will be at a stoplight, they'll wait for the light to turn green, and when it does, they yell, "Go back to your own country." Now, back in the day, they would have actually gotten out of their cars and hated you to your face, but they just don't make them like they used to, which is another sign of the decline in America.
So take us through your path here. How did you get into social justice comedy?
I did a lot of jobs where it was like, you know, I need you to write like 22 jokes about Zac Efron's abs, like by 1 p.m. You know, I've done a lot of those jobs where like the material is not important or anything like that. It's just pure entertainment. But I also wanted to be able to do work that was like meaningful to me, that really brought in some of the stuff that I was doing as a, you know, in public policy and as a public servant and bringing light to certain policies. But so I started making those kinds of videos where I would try to raise attention towards issues like big banks, healthcare, obviously immigrant rights, Islamophobia. Those became really big issues for me, and a way for me to kind of nourish your soul with writing jokes about, you know, big banks and bigotry.
So how do you use your comedy to break down stereotypes?
I try to have it feel like, you know, you're kind of sitting inside of like a warm burrito. Like you're getting like the cheese and all the gooey good stuff or whatever, but you're getting like a bit of protein and some of your, you know, some of your shredded chicken as well. And that shredded chicken is the, you know, where you might learn something super accidentally. You might learn a little something about the Muslim ban. And how it might be unconstitutional, or about women's reproductive rights, you know, but then the exterior shell is very comedy focused and fun.
So you talk about this burrito. How does this burrito, what about it makes it so effective in breaking down these stereotypes?
Comedy kind of has a power of like getting itself in your brain a little bit easier, which makes sense because it's fun and you're just more likely to remember things that are more fun and more inviting.
Now and again, with all jokes, you'll have those who love the jokes and those who maybe don't like the jokes so much. Have you ever had a hostile experience, and how do you deal with those hostile experiences?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have had a lot of hostile experiences. I mean, I'm an Iranian American Muslim female, so at some point I'm just asking for it. You have to pick your battles, you know what I mean? And you have to, there's a group of people that are just never going to be moved by whatever it is you're telling them. They are not the ones that you should target. It's the other ones. The people that just don't have enough exposure to Muslims, or the people that don't have enough exposure to people of color. Those are the people that are like probably fundamentally good, and they'll be into what you're saying and what you're doing. And then there's people that are just way more on the fringe, and they're not really worth your time.
So what can we, the Team Harmony staff and Team Harmony reporters, take from your comedy and your burrito methodology, as you called it, to help fight racism in our own lives?
If you see something going on that's wrong, you are actually powerful enough within our local institutions, within our systems, to be able to do something about it. I never thought I was going to have to defend my right to put up posters, but here I was, and I had to do it, and it worked out. And so I think that you know, if you see something in your community that isn't right, you have the power. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it doesn't take forever, but you definitely have the power to do something.
Now, Nagin, how can the younger generation flip the script on racism?
Exposure is really the key. Like I always joke, I would love for every American to have a Muslim friend, but we're like less than 2% of the population, so we can't be everyone. Like I'll take like 10 if I have to, just to like even out the numbers, but it still doesn't work out. But that's really the thing, is exposure. I mean, you know, my parents, I married a black man, and you know, my parents are Iranian immigrants, and they weren't necessarily like super cool at first with me marrying a black man, but then they met him and then they love him. And then, you know, my mom went from being like, via black guy to like Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? She was able to like do that. And I'm serious. Like she really is out there fighting for Black Lives Matter because she has a son-in-law who's black who she loves, right? And that's, I think, what am I saying? Date someone from the opposite race? Is that what I'm saying? Not exactly. But what I am saying is exposure, meet people from the other side of the tracks, meet people from the other side of town. We have sort of like gone into these silos on the internet. We've gone into these silos in our neighborhoods where we don't necessarily connect with everybody. And that's a mistake because that's where that kind of connection with people who you may not normally interact with, that's where the good stuff is. And I think that's where change is really possible.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. This was an awesome experience. And thank you so much for your wisdom as well. That's the most important part.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
Remember Cameroon? Well, a couple of countries to the left is Ghana, and that's where we find our global youth reporter Joseph examining the daily challenges of life as an ex-convict in their country.
For many years, Ghana's law courts have determined the fate of people who are convicted of crimes. But what happens to these people after serving their terms in prison is virtually unknown to many. I set out to meet with Michael Achampong, an ex-convict turned preacher, who served 7 years at the Nsawam Maximum Security Prison. He tells me the story about his life, why he was imprisoned, and how he copes with society as an ex-convict.
My name is Michael, and I was born and raised in Medina Firestone in Accra. I had my senior secondary education in Accra Academy, and it's there that my life became miserable and shameful, even though I was a very smart boy in school. But the devil made me into a foolish man in my final year at school, and that's when things started to go wrong. I was convicted when I was 33. Stealing. The situation in prison was absolutely horrible. Just imagine 50 people sleeping in one single room. When I got out, my family had given up on me. They rejected me because they felt like I was a threat to them. My younger brothers and sisters, though, wanted to be close to me, but it was my dad who prevented me from coming back into the family. I can remember going to my aunt's house and I could see her car parked in the driveway, but the driver told me she wasn't there. This happened twice, and I'm not going back again. I had to sleep in public transport minibuses for almost 11 months. Eventually, I met someone who found me a small apartment, and that's where I am now. When I started preaching on the streets, sometimes I'd mention that I was an ex-con. But when I did, people became concerned, and they'd hold on tightly to whatever bags they were carrying. They were afraid.
Michael, who has few months left, according to his doctors, could have been comforted by the warmth of his family, but for the stigma that hangs over his status, this remains a far-fetched wish. Reporting for Team Harmony, my name is Joseph Amakwata from Accra, Ghana.
If you remember in last month's show, we talked to one of our reporters from Pakistan about her story. This month, it's Joseph's turn. Joseph, how did you choose this story?
There are so many people on the streets of Ghana who actually beg, and from little interactions, you can easily identify that these people are homeless people who have been rejected by their families because they have actually been to prison before. And I found out that this is something that the Ghanaian as a person or the Ghanaian society does not talk about. And I decided to talk about it because these people also deserve to be heard.
How did you find your interviewee and arrange for the interview?
So I picked the bus at the local bus terminal in Accra one day, and this gentleman who identifies himself as a preacher walked into the vehicle and spoke about his story. And I realized that he was an ex-convict and trying to use his past to preach like the good message to people to repent and all of that. So I actually decided to trace him down, and unluckily for me, I realized he didn't have a phone, so it took me 5 days to meet him. And that is how we sat down, and then he shared his story willingly with me.
What surprised you about his story?
Most of the time we classify people who've been to prison to be people who are daft and who are, not brilliant. But this gentleman is actually very, very brilliant, and he claims that he was once the top student in his high school, and he mentioned some popular people in the Ghanaian society who he was in high school with, and I could actually attest to that fact. And that was extremely surprising because I at least expected to find someone of such high, intellect to find himself in such a precarious situation.
Is the stigma of being an ex-convict in Ghana a problem? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, stigmatization is actually a big problem when it comes to ex-convicts. And a study done by the University of Ghana reveals that stigmatization or rejection by the society of ex-convicts leads to anger, strain, low self-esteem, and lack of self-control. And this also leads to ex-convicts trying to seek support from illegitimate sources by developing criminal characters that leads them into re-offending behaviors. And this is what contributes to the high rate of recidivism that we have in the Ghanaian society.
In your research, did you come across any organizations that are trying to reintegrate ex-convicts into society?
Yes, I came across an organization that calls itself the Crime Check Foundation, CCF, and their main focus is to advocate for crime prevention, but they also pay a lot of attention to reintegrating ex-convicts back into the Ghanaian society. And this organization is being heavily supported by Ghanaian football star and Newcastle player Christian Achu. And with his support, they have been able to provide livelihood support for ex-convicts, such as getting them back to school, helping those who want to become entrepreneurs and those who want to gain some skills and training so that they will be able to reintegrate successfully into the Ghanaian society.
Joseph, big thank you for everything that you do and for giving us some of your time today.
Thank you very much, Team Harmony, for this opportunity.
Going back to Egypt, now we find Noor as she interviews a project manager from a group called Break It Down, an organization fighting stereotypes and hate crimes in Cairo.
Hi, I'm Noor Salah, reporting from Cairo, Egypt, and today I'm going to be covering an initiative called Break It Down. Break It Down are trying to break down all the stereotypes here in Egypt, and they are trying to fight all kinds of hate crimes. I want you all to welcome Heba. She's the project manager of Break It Down. I want to start with the first question. Who started Break It Down, and why did you think of starting Break It Down?
Welcome, Nuran. Mainly, our initiative started 1 year ago based on a great problem happened in Egypt, is that a lot of nationalities live in the same place and they have a lot of differences. So stereotyping started between them, and they can't accept each other. They can't follow the same instructions and the same rule. So we have to do something. We have to publish awareness about accepting each other. So we started our initiative.
Egypt is a country of 7,000 years old culture. There is an old saying that says if you drink from the Nile River once, you'll be charmed and you will definitely get back to Egypt again. We're the ones who invented makeup, calendars, clocks, toothpaste, mummification, and even writing. The population of Egypt is 100 million people, and the people living on the Egyptian lands from many different countries are way more than that. 90% of the population are Muslims, and 9% are Christians, and the rest are Jews. With all of that, hate crimes and racism are a usual news headline in Egypt. Discrimination against color, race, and religion appeared aggressively against immigrants lately.
How do you think that Break It Down is breaking down stereotypes?
Mainly, we choose to start with children to be able to create a generation able to accept the differences and able to accept different mindsets. So we start with them with the definition of peace, types of peace, and dialogue, finally conflict resolution.
Spreading awareness is not an option anymore. Diversity and inclusion has to be learned and planted in the minds of the new generations so we wouldn't face the same hate over and over again.
When you started the initiative, did you have any pushing back from your surroundings or your families or anyone?
At first, we thought that we will find a lot of problems, but actually we find a lot of support because a lot of people here in Egypt suffered from stereotyping and they want someone to stop this and publish awareness about accepting different nationalities, different mindsets, colors, nationalities.
I see. I'm very happy that such an initiative exists in real life, and I'm very happy to have you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Noor. Nice job. This month, we asked our reporters worldwide, what's the biggest equality issue in your country?
In Portugal, besides our gender inequality problem, we have a big disparity between the rich and the poor.
One of the biggest equality issues facing my country in Egypt is still between men and women.
As it is for Panama, I would say the equality in the education system.
Currently, the biggest equality issue in Poland is women's rights and LGBTQ+ rights.
India has been a predominantly patriarchal society for the longest time, and we have been facing gender inequality issues.
I believe the biggest equality issue in my country is equality in education.
The biggest equality issue in my country is gender inequality and violence against women.
The biggest equality issue in my country is disrespecting women's rights and their abilities.
One of the biggest equality issues in Austria are the gender pay gap and social and racial discrimination in the workplace.
Let's turn our attention to Poland now, where Joanna talks to a teenager whose family started anti-discrimination workshops in schools that led to a campaign.
Hi, I'm Jana Brzezinska from Poland, reporting for Team Harmony. As almost 97% of Poland's population is ethnic Poles, Poles are not accustomed to people of color. Today I'm talking to Elena and Volisa, whose family was unfortunate to experience racism, however, they turned it into something powerful. Could you tell me something about yourself?
I have 3 siblings, and my stepdad is from Nigeria. So my siblings are of color. We have a foundation, and we fight against racism and discrimination in Poland.
Do you consider racism in Poland a big issue?
People think that Poland is this tolerant, accepting country, but there's a lot of verbal racism, like on the streets, people get called out, and yeah, it's on the internet too. So I think it is.
Have any of your relatives or friends experienced racism in Poland? How did it affect them?
It started like 2 years ago. My youngest brother, he was 7. He was bullied at school for his skin color. The school didn't really take any action. So my parents decided that we have to do something about it. We had this idea to start anti-discrimination workshops in schools. We were sharing our story. We gathered a group, and as a family we sat down and started making banners. Someone took a picture of my sister when she was crossing the street with her banner, which is this. It's her banner, which means stop calling me Murzyn, and it's like the N-word in English. And people don't find this word offensive. So it's like they use it normally, but on the streets, people get called out. It's as an insult. So we tried to change that. And my sister got invited to be on the cover of Vogue. Thanks to that picture, it changed a lot. Like there were discussions everywhere about that word.
Do you think that Black Lives Matter protests in Poland make Poles more aware and tolerant?
I think that if not that picture, that was taken, it wouldn't change much. People were really kind of defending this word because people find it beautiful and they don't see how it's offensive. But it doesn't offend them because it's not like for them to use.
Could you tell me more about your family's foundation, Porta, and its mission?
Our main mission is education and spreading awareness. And another mission is also like spreading awareness in media. We were on the TV like many times already. The main mechanism of racism is dehumanization. And if we share our story of my family, then people see them as people. It really shows them that they're hurting someone, actually not just a group.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
That was an inspirational story. Thanks, Joanna. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce another incredibly popular comedian who's not afraid to address racism through humor in his routines.
People just walk around looking for any ridiculous reason to be mad. You know, right now, there's an actual controversy over the Little Mermaid. Have you heard about this? Have you heard they cast a black girl to play Ariel in the Little Mermaid, and a bunch of racists got mad saying our mermaid is supposed to be white. And nobody had the heart to tell them, like, mermaids aren't real. I'm sure if you found a white mermaid, she'd be okay with a black mermaid. Because that would be the only other mermaid, you know what I mean?
So comedians tend to see things differently, right? Why is that important?
Comics have a way of just cutting through the BS and giving it to you straight. I think simply telling the truth, people like, oh yeah, you're right, you know. So I think those are the things that make it funny.
So how have you overcome racism and discrimination in both your career and in life?
Racism is tiring. I'll tell you that first of all. I hate the fact that we are now battling the same battles that my parents fought in the 60s, you know, voting rights and so forth. And to look at the discrimination against various other groups. As a comedian, the battle is to point out the hypocrisy. You know, there are white people who hate immigrants. You're all immigrants. Every one of you. You just came sooner. I tell them, listen, all you did, you beat the Mexicans here by about 100 years. As a black person in America, it's a unique history that we have. We love our country. Our country oftentimes hates us, but we will not go away. We excel. You have to keep going. You can't give in to the racists. There are times when you may be hit with discrimination and you don't even know it. You know, that happens. It's part of the game. You can't give up because of it. You can call it out when you see it. The other thing that uniquely comics can do is we make fun of it. You know, we make fun of the racists and we make fun of every group. The crowd knows when you do a joke. If I do a joke about gays, they know it's a joke. But if you're truly homophobic and you do a joke about gays, there's a certain meanness to it. And the crowd picks up on that. And then they're like, nah, that's not cool. And the same thing with any group, whether it be, you know, women or black or Mexican or whatever. And you can always make more fun of your own group than other groups.
So in your career, have you ever felt threatened and how did you handle it?
I don't count the internet. You know, internet trolls, for the most part, are cowards and not to be given any respect. I think we give them too much power. But the masses of the angry commenters online, they're cowards.
My last question is, how can our global youth reporters use humor as a tool to stand up to hate?
We laugh at our differences. I have traveled the world. I've been lucky enough to do comedy just about everywhere in the world that people speak English. And I've done comedy in the midst of other cultures. And you'd be surprised how much more we are alike than different. A 7-year-old kid running through a flock of pigeons happens in every culture because people are the same. Every parent, I don't care if you're, you know, black, white, Middle Eastern, Asian, your teenagers are a problem. Humor cuts through all of these stereotypes. Humor cuts through hatred because we point out how ridiculous it is. That's how humor battles hatred. You make the hater look as stupid as possible. You make the racist look utterly ridiculous. We're so much more alike than different. And when you're a comic, you get to make fun of this, and you get to make fun of the obvious difference. I was in Ireland. I was at Kilkenny Comedy Festival in Ireland, and I joked about being black in Ireland. And I was like, I saw another black guy, and he thought I was on the team too. And they all laughed because, Ireland is a very white place. I talked about how pale they were, and you could actually see their organs when the sun shines through them from the back. And they laugh because they're like, yeah, we are pale. We are up on this, cloudy green island in the North Atlantic, right? So you get that. And then I was in Cape Town, South Africa, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of white people here. I thought you got rid of them. And they laughed because that's a joke about the history of apartheid, and it's not dismissing it, it's acknowledging it.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Keep your sense of humor and don't take everything personally. Don't take everything personally. I mean, you're 5 feet tall. You have to keep a sense of humor because you're only 4 inches taller than someone who could bring me good luck. You're only 4 inches away from bringing good luck. See, and you have to laugh at stuff like that because too many in our society are looking to be injured, looking to be upset. When they talk about that cancel culture, they try to use it as a cover for saying horrible things and doing horrible things. Keep your sense of humor. Take the hit, laugh, and keep going. There's nothing that frustrates them more than you laughing. There's nothing when they hate you and you're laughing at them. Oh, that makes them mad, So keep that. And would you stop asking me for life advice? The hell do I know?
We're done. I won't ask you anymore, I promise. Thank you for everything, Alonso.
Thank you. I love being a part of it. Hit me up anytime. I'll be glad to help.
Our last story comes from the southern part of Egypt in Aswan. Maria introduces us to Egyptian youth who volunteered to help clean up following a devastating explosion in Beirut, Lebanon.
4th of August 2020. A great explosion happened in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, causing a huge destruction all around the capital. Today, I'm interviewing someone telling us about his efforts to help Lebanon citizens overcome this catastrophe.
And today I have with me Mahmoud Abdelmajid, the founder of Have a Dream Foundation, that provide opportunities to Egyptian citizens to volunteer and help anybody in need around the world. How Have a Dream Foundation helped Lebanons by volunteering after the explosion?
After the explosion, I feel like it's a big responsibility. I really feel that I wanted to be there to help the people in Lebanon. I get a lot of messages from people asking for help. So I booked my ticket. I went to Lebanon, and I was really very worried about that because the media is showing all the time that Lebanon is not safe and there is a lot of demonstration. People are in the streets. If you will not be safe if you go there. So I was a little bit afraid, but I went with the volunteers in Lebanon to the apartments, buildings, to the streets, just doing one thing. We are cleaning the homes from the glass because there is a lot of glass everywhere. It's a huge explosion. It's one of the third explosion in the world after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We offering just help. Like we come just to help you. The first step that we spend all August cleaning the homes, making something like conservation. And then we start two things. Business assessment to the small and medium and big shops or restaurants, whatever, to know like how can we help them. The third thing was there is a team for social support. They was going to the old people in their homes or their apartments, just to talk to them, just to help them to be back again to the normal life. And then we start in Have a Dream to organize a program for Egyptians to go to Lebanon. 50 volunteers traveled with us in 3 months. It was really something huge. I didn't expect that before traveling to Lebanon, but now I feel that I'm really happy that 50 people, they pay for the ticket, for accommodation, food, they pay for everything just to go to Lebanon and help.
As you saw, this is how Egyptian youth could use their abilities in a right way to spread social justice and help Lebanese. Hope this video encouraged you to do the same. And for me, it definitely encouraged me to work more in volunteering works and make me proud of being capable to do so. Thank you so much. It was Maria Medhat, Global Youth Reporter for Team Harmony Foundation from Egypt.
Thanks, Maria, for a perfect example of youth taking action. And we hope you're inspired to do the same at home.
Because that is what Team Harmony is all about.
That's it for our show. But if you stick around, you'll be able to chat with some of the people you've seen on today's broadcast. So until next time, peace.